As we begin to learn Reaper and DAWs, initially we are not going to learn how to record sound with our computer. Initially, I'm going to ask you to go find already recorded digital audio files and use those as your source material. We will eventually get to recording, but for the time being, today I'm going to show you a couple of sites on the internet where you can go download 2 to 3 files that you can play with for this week. These are also sites that you should be aware of in general anyway, that you can use throughout this semester as well as into the future as you work on various projects. The first one of these is the Internet Archive, and the Internet Archive is a nonprofit working to build a digital library of internet sites and other cultural artifacts in digital form. Like a paper library, they provide free access to researchers, historians, scholars, the print disabled, and the general public. Their mission is to provide universal access to all knowledge. This project actually grew from the Wayback Machine, which was a database that aimed to catalog and document websites over time on the entirety of the internet. If you've taken web design here at the University of Montana, you've likely learned about the Wayback Machine. And as a fun note, the Wayback Machine can be actually a lot of fun to play around with. You can look not only at websites on the entirety of the internet, but you can actually look at how websites have iterated and changed over time. So, for example, you can go check out the University of Montana's first homepage that was put up in the 90s. They've grown from there, and now this includes books, video, audio, software, and images. Much of the material and content that they collect and provide access to is in the public domain, so it is free to use in any way that you see fit. Not everything, however, though, is in the public domain on archive.org, so do check licenses and permissions and copyrights whenever you're contemplating using something from there that you might use in a piece that's going to go public. So let's look at it because there can be a little bit funny to download. And media type. Oh, it's still loading here. Come on, do it. My internet, it works sometimes. We'll just ignore the stuff on the left and do some searching this way. Let's grab vinyl LP collection from Boston Public Library. Very interesting. All kinds of great stuff here. I want to grab a story though. So, whoa. Okay. Let's grab the adventures. Oh, I saw Peter Rabbit earlier. Where do you think that is? That doesn't matter. We'll grab the Art of War. So notice this is in the public domain, meaning we can use it in any way that we want. And there's a number of different file types available for download. Whenever possible, you should try to prioritize WAV or AIFF files. After that, you should try to prioritize FLAC, FLAC. And finally, you can choose then between MP3 or OGG, and either of those is fine as the last resort. If you are grabbing MP3s, grab the highest quality one you can. In this case, 128 kilobytes per second. So I'm going to grab a chapter from this book. Let's do the Army on, let's do 9 situations. We'll download that. Sometimes on Macs and Safari in particular, if it's an MP3, it'll open on a new page. To download it, assuming that it actually downloads, there we go. If you right click on it and say download video, in this case, we'll notice up in my download section, it's going to start to download this MP3. Great. So let's go back out. Another resource that you're going to use extensively, I can almost guarantee it, is Freesound. And Freesound is a site with a collection of user-created, curated, and uploaded sound files. On almost all of the sounds on this site contain licenses or permissions that allow you to use them freely in any way you want. Sometimes with attribution, but that's not too much of a bummer. So Freesound has almost anything. It's really kind of incredible. The only thing to be aware of is that you will need to create accounts. You'll notice here that I am logged in, Music M. So I've already created my account, and that's how you download things on Freesound. So let's look for River. I think might be fun. High Flow River. Great, sounds good. And we can see if I just hover over here, this sound is in the public domain, so it's going to be great to use. It's a FLAC file, that's fine. I'll download it, and notice there's also some information over here. So it's downloading. Let's look for something else. I'm going to search like trees. Tree rustle. What's that sound like? Oh, it's beautiful. So let's click on it. This is in the Creative Commons, so you'll have to attribute this work if you end up using it, just letting someone know where you got it from. So we're going to download that. Another site, and again, especially for those of you doing any sound for film or video games, this is a great place to kind of get especially filler sounds when you're trying to sketch out your project. You might obviously need to go record things yourself later that meet the specs that you need, but this is a great place to start with your search for sound files. Two other kind of interesting sources are the Library of Congress. And of course, the Library of Congress is the largest library in the world with millions of books, recordings, photographs, newspapers, maps, and manuscripts in its collection. And it's actually the research arm of the United States Congress and home of the U.S. Copyright Office, as it says. Their collection is giant, and they've been under an initiative to digitize and present on the internet as much of their collection as they can. So this is a little bit of a weird one, and I don't know how useful it will be to you. I'm just going to search here and go to like page 7. Let's see what comes up. Making Kate a pair of shoes. That's kind of interesting. Mary was a red bird. Interview with Alfonso Divino. Oh, the Battle Cry of Brunhilde. Let's see if we can use this. Some things you can use on this site, some things you can't. And I'll show you how to be able to tell. So this one, I can add it to a playlist, so I'll actually be able to download that. Come on. The internet. I'm so sorry. It's being slow all of a sudden. Do it. Let's try this again. Add to my playlist. Great. And so if I've got this in my playlist, I can right click on it and say download linked file. You notice that's going to download. And so we're finishing up our other downloads up here. Let's see here. I'm just going to pull this up to see what this is like. Make sure it's useful. We'll open it with QuickTime Player for the time being. Yeah. Actually, this is a really fun opera. I used to be a tuba player, so of course there's a number of excerpts, orchestral excerpts from this opera that I had to learn. So I've spent a lot of time studying it. At any rate, some things on the Library of Congress you won't be able to download, just so you know that. But if you kind of pop around and poke around, you should be able to find what you can and can't. And again, pay attention to copyrights. Stuff that's essentially after 1920 or something like that, you should not use. And I think before 1920, you should be able to use generally. Finally, the last kind of interesting resource is NASA, who again has a giant collection of data and information. And they've also been working recently to digitize and put onto the internet as much of their sounds as they can. And they've got a media use policy here, so pay attention to that. But let's grab, let's see what this magnitude 3.3 Mars quake from July 25th, 2019 sounds like. I love it. It's kind of glitchy and it's great. It's very low frequency, so if you had on bad headphones, you probably couldn't hear it. So I'll download that as well. Wonderful. And now I've downloaded all of those things. So what I'd like you to do is poke around these 4 sites that I've just showed you and grab at least 3 sounds that you'll play with for the rest of this week as you explore Reaper.